Mademoiselle X was 43 years old, presenting with a symptom no textbook had a name for. She was certain she was already dead. Not suicidal in the way her doctors expected. Not confused about the date or her own name. She could describe her condition with unsettling precision. She had no brain, she said. No nerves. No stomach. No need, therefore, to eat because a corpse does not get hungry. She wasn't raving. She was calm. That calm was the most disturbing part. The question her case would leave behind for every doctor and every patient who came after her is one modern neuroscience still hasn't fully answered what happens when the brain that generates your sense of being alive simply stops signing off on it. And how do you treat a patient who no longer believes she exists to be treated at all? Paris, 1880. This was a hopeful decade for the mind sciences. A new generation of neurologists believed they were finally cracking open the border between brain and behavior, cataloging hysteria, melancholia, and nervous disorders with the same confidence naturalists brought to cataloging species. Jean-Martin Charcot was drawing crowds at the Salpêtrière with his public demonstrations of hysteria. For the first time, mental suffering was being treated as something with a physical address in the body, not a moral failing or a spiritual punishment. Into this climate walked a patient the record only ever calls Mademoiselle X. What's known about her is sparse by design. This was an era that protected patient identity through anonymity, not through diagnosis. What is known is that she came to the neurologist Jules Cotard already deep into a private conviction that she was cursed, condemned, unable to die a natural death, and abandoned even by God and the devil, both of whom she insisted did not exist. Cotard didn't dismiss her. That, in itself, was unusual. He listened long enough to notice something her earlier doctors had missed. She wasn't simply depressed, and she wasn't simply delusional in the ordinary sense. She was negating. Piece by piece, she was denying the existence of her own body, and then denying the existence of everything else strong enough to contradict her. Doctors at the time had a category ready for a woman insisting she was dying or dead or damned hysteria. It was the era's catch-all diagnosis for female suffering that didn't fit anywhere else. It came with the era's promise, too, that hysteria could be talked down, coaxed back to reason, managed with rest and reassurance. Mademoiselle X's family and physicians extended her that same hopeful assumption. Give it time. She'll come back to herself. She did not. The first doctors to see her had tried hysteria. It didn't fit. Hysteria came in fits and spells, and hers was a fixed, unbroken conviction that never wavered no matter how she was reasoned with. They tried melancholia. Next, profound depression could produce despair this deep. But melancholic patients, still in some corner of themselves, feared death. Mademoiselle X didn't fear it. She'd already filed it as complete. Then came hypochondriacal delusion, an exaggerated irrational fixation on bodily illness. Closer, but still not quite right. A hypochondriac fears they might be dying. She was not afraid of dying. She was reporting factually as she saw it that she already had. The clinical record is unambiguous about what came next. She stopped asking for food, not from despair, but from a logic no one in the room could argue against. A corpse does not get hungry. Whoever sat with her family or nurse was met not with resistance, but with a patient almost pitying certainty that they were the ones who hadn't yet understood what she already had. This is the part of the story that should sit with you. Before we go any further, nobody around her had the language yet to recognize what they were watching. There was no diagnosis called Cotard's syndrome in 1880. There was only a woman and the people who loved her. Running out of the ordinary explanations, one by one left with a question that had no answer. Yet how do you save someone who is certain they no longer exist? In June of 1880, Jules Cotard stepped up to the podium of the Société Médico-Psychologique. He wasn't there to present a cure. He was there to announce a discovery that would unsettle men who believed they'd already mapped the human mind, one that more than a century later, doctors would still be diagnosing and stroke survivors in severe depression even in rare post-infection cases today. What Cotard argued in front of his skeptical peers was radical for 1880. This wasn't hysteria, and it wasn't ordinary melancholia. It was something the mind did to protect itself from an unbearable guilt or dread, negating the self so completely that even death lost its sting, because death requires you to still exist enough to lose something. The tragedy is that naming a condition and treating it are two different sciences, and in 1880, only one of them existed yet. Mademoiselle X died of starvation, not from a body that failed her, but from a mind that had convinced her the body had already failed long before it actually did. Cotard published his case as Le délire des négations, the delusion of negation. It would later carry his name instead, Cotard's delusion, sometimes still called informally walking corpse syndrome. Today, it isn't in the official diagnostic manuals as its own disorder. It shows up instead as a rare symptom inside depression, schizophrenia, and certain neurological injuries. A reminder that the feeling of being alive isn't automatic. It's something the brain has to actively construct and maintain moment to moment, and in rare cases that construction can fail. What stayed with Cotard's colleagues wasn't just the strangeness of her claims. It was how reasonable she sounded making them. She wasn't screaming that she was dead. She was simply calmly correcting everyone else's mistake. More than a century later, neurologists studying Cotard's cases in stroke patients still describe the same unsettling calm patients who aren't panicked by their own death, only puzzled that the people around them haven't caught up to it yet. Somewhere in that gap between what a mind insists is true and what everyone else can plainly see is a question that has never really gone away. What do we actually mean when we say someone believes they're alive?